Hello! Today I'm going to tell you about my 12-hour layover in Gatwick Airport, which is about 30 minutes outside of London. I'm going to tell you what I did, how I did it, how I got to see so many sights during that 12-hour layover, and we're going to start with my arrival in Gatwick. So immediately arriving in Gatwick Airport in London, I was a little bit nervous because the first thing I had to do was to go through customs. What I did was I went to the customs office. There was basically a door that said nothing to declare, and there was a door that you went through if you had nothing to declare, and there was a door that you went through if you had something to declare or if you weren't sure about if you had something to declare or not. I had something to declare because I had a very important medication with me. My biggest concern about traveling to France was that somewhere along the way, either going into London, coming out of London, or going into France, my prescription would get confiscated. Luckily, that did not happen. In fact, when I went through the door to declare something at customs, no one was even there. I had to wait for a couple of minutes, and then a guy came out from the back, like a customs officer, and he basically asked me, he was like, "What's up?" And I was like, "This is my first time traveling. I have a prescription medication and I have some food items." And he basically said, he was like, "Do you have any like animal products?" And I was like, "No, it's like these dates and these Jolly Ranchers." And I told him what I had in my bag and like started showing him, but he was just like, "You're fine, go through. You don't have to," I didn't have to open up my luggage or anything like that, which was very fortunate. After I got my checked bag, the first thing I did was connect to Wi-Fi. I had turned off data in Austin to make sure that I didn't get charged for any data usage while I was abroad, and so Wi-Fi was the only way I had of finding any information, contacting anyone, letting anyone know that I had gotten there safe. So I connected to Wi-Fi, texted my parents, and then did a little bit of research. It was 7 a.m. London time when I landed, and I had almost a 12-hour layover, so I knew I wanted to see as much as possible. So the first thing I did was find the information desk, and I asked the guy at the information desk where the left luggage services were at Gatwick so that I could leave my luggage. I would not recommend assuming that every airport has left luggage services, even though a lot do. I did my research on this before I even went to Gatwick. I Googled and just read some traveling forums about whether it was going to be realistic to go into London during these 12 hours, so I was a little bit prepared. I made my way over there and checked both of my bags. I then went to the ticket counter and bought a ticket to Victoria London Station because it was close to a lot of tourist spots, and there was a train that went directly there from Gatwick Airport. The man at the ticket counter told me there was almost no difference between the Gatwick Express train and the Southern train when it comes to getting to Victoria London Station, besides the fact that the Southern train costs about £5 less and takes 5 to 10 minutes longer. And for me, that wasn't a really big time difference, so I ended up getting a ticket for the Southern train. This is a good time to mention that this whole trip would have been super difficult figuring out all the logistics of the train if I hadn't already moved to DC and spent 6 months there living without a car. If you have never used public transportation before, or if you have only used one specific type of public transportation, if you're not experienced with using different cities, with using public transportation while traveling, I would recommend doing a lot more research than I did before you get to the ticket counter and start trying to get your ticket to London, because there were a lot of things that were quite confusing for me, even though I was pretty experienced. I could make a whole other video about using trains, metro, and bus systems in various cities and how to figure out a new system once you get there, so if you'd be interested in that, comment below. Eventually, I made it to the right platform, onto the right train, and was on my way to Victoria Station. When I arrived in Victoria Station, I went straight to the McDonald's. I bought some affordable food and some coffee because staying awake was a priority at this point. Now that I was in the city, I had no choice but to combat my jet lag with as much sunlight, caffeine, and movement as possible. I looked at my maps to see what was close. Since I didn't have data, I couldn't see the names of streets besides the major ones that you can always see. I couldn't search for specific directions, but I could walk in a direction and see what direction my dot moved in because my GPS still worked. So basically, I started walking and tried to figure out where I was and how to go in the correct direction. Eventually I made it to Westminster Cathedral, which was a lot darker on the inside than I expected or was used to after going to American cathedrals. It was a reminder of how old the architecture was here. After the cathedral, I walked to Buckingham Palace. It was beautiful, but a lot smaller than I expected, if I were being honest. There were tons of tourists around, and almost all of them spoke French. Next, I went through Buckingham Palace Garden, which has this memorial to Canadian soldiers who lost their lives during World War I and World War II. I then saw the memorial gates that commemorated the sacrifices of the men and women from India, Africa, and the Caribbean during World War I and World War II. I walked through the Wellington Arch towards Hyde Park. I found that London was very well designed, much like DC, with many major monuments and government buildings all within walking distance and all surrounding parks. Or, in this case, royal gardens. After crossing through the arch, I finally made it to Hyde Park. I spent quite a while walking through Hyde Park. The landscaping was quite pretty and the animals were very friendly, especially around the pond. It was incredible being able to go right up to these swans. The lake was quite sizable and very pretty. Inside of the park, they had a large horse trail surrounded by walking and biking paths. On the trail, British soldiers were practicing drills in full uniform. I stopped for a while to enjoy this. You would also occasionally see soldiers on horses marching through the street, or police on horses. The presence of horses in the middle of the big city was charming and reminded me of New York City. I then walked through James Park and made my way in the direction of Big Ben. I wasn't sure if these towers were Big Ben, the Tower Bridge, or Westminster Abbey, but either way, I was tired and decided to call it a day at this point. I walked past some iconic red telephone boxes. At one, there was a woman in a swimsuit with a surfboard in her hands. Keep in mind, this is the beginning of March, so it is 39 degrees out. She kept telling the little girl in her pink sweatshirt that her friend had made this surfboard out of recycled wood. As I made my way back towards Victoria Station, through the parks, I came upon a cute cottage. I think the plaque said that it would have belonged to a bird keeper. When I got back to Victoria Station area, I couldn't help but pop into a Harry Potter shop. Before I headed back to the airport, I got a quick bite at Pret-Manger. I then made my way back to the airport. I was so exhausted from my big day out that I was almost ready to fall asleep on the train. I collected and paid for my luggage, got on the shuttle to the North Terminal, and took off the tags from my previous flight and checked my bags. I had a lot of time before my flight, but luckily Gatwick Airport is basically a giant shopping mall, and it includes everything you could possibly want, including a Harry Potter store. Soon I was boarding my flight, and my 12-hour layover in Gatwick Airport was over.